You're listening to Weightlifting for Noobs, your one-stop shop for all your fitness information. Hello and welcome to Fitness for Noobs. I'm your host, Charlie McCormack. This is the podcast for people like me who are just starting in the gym and want to get some tips and tricks to get started in the gym. Today on the podcast we have Alex, who is a personal trainer at Anytime Fitness. We'll be discussing some mistakes people have when they first start in the gym, what to do if you want to develop muscle growth, and discuss some fitness myths that you might have heard. Also on the show we have Dr. Robin Murphy from La Trobe University, who specialises in muscle physiology, muscle calcium and muscle biochemistry. We had a really good conversation of how muscles grow, how muscles develop, and the science behind muscle development. Please come and join me as we explore how to get those biceps you have been dreaming of. Recently, I found an article on the Harvard Health Publishing that suggested that there can be a hidden danger to protein powder drinks. According to the report, this is because the FDA, or the US Food and Drug Administration, leaves it up to manufacturers to evaluate safety and labeling of the products. Also, the drinks can secretly have high levels of added sugar and calories. But the biggest risk that they are found to have 134 products contain toxins and heavy metals like lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. This is noted when a 25-year-old mother of two was found unconscious in a Perth apartment. She died 3 days after intensive care in hospital. Her death certificate says she died from a cerebral disorder. The certificate also lists of intake of bodybuilding supplements as a cause of her death. According to Dr. Nicholas Satchell, a professor from the University of New South Wales, is that most protein supplements are totally unregulated and needs further improvement. Now, I've spoken to Alex, the personal trainer, about his opinion on this topic later in the show. However, my opinion is that no matter what you take, you always have to be mindful of what you have. The recommended amount of protein for women is 46 grams and for men is 56 grams. This is opposite to the medical news report suggesting there is little danger when it comes to protein shakes, and they help with weight loss and repair tissue and muscle development. Protein is known for muscle development, and if you are aiming to develop your muscles, then you should get the recommended amount of protein. Most bodybuilding professionals say they always use protein powder shakes, but this could be a marketing ploy. However, always be wary of what you take into your body, and with this report it is something to look out for in the future. If you are looking at muscle development, you don't have to take protein shakes. Water is always better to replenish your body. Now, on to our first interview with personal trainer Alex. So when I first started in the gym, I just felt overwhelmed with the equipment and the people doing their usual exercises, and I didn't know where to start. But this isn't just me. So many people, when they first start in the gym, find it really daunting. What exercises to do? How many reps? So I spoke to Alex from Anytime Fitness. We spoke about people's mistakes when they first try the gym, what foods to eat for muscle development, and what exercises to try when you first start in the gym.
Most common mistake varies probably between genders a little bit. Men tend to use too much weight. In doing so, their form drops a lot further than what it should. And for women, it can tend to go the other way. They don't want to use as much weight when they could be using more.
So what type of exercise do you recommend for people who want to start out in the gym?
It's hard to put it down to specific exercises, but your fundamentals, your squats, lunges, bench pressing, shoulder pressing, deadlifting, they're the big lifts, and I try to incorporate them in everyone when they first start.
So what type of exercises if you want someone to trigger muscle growth?
So muscle growth in itself is not limited to any specific exercise in itself. It's more about a total volume of exercises. So when I say volume, the amount of sets you do, the amount of weight you use, and using a rep range sort of between anywhere from 8 reps, probably right up to 20.
There's a myth that if you don't do any gains in a week or so, your muscles tend to go down. Is that true?
If you don't exercise, is that right? Yeah. Okay. So if probably not in 1 week, that's pretty quick and quite a drastic statement, I guess, that some people make. over time, your muscles will start to deplete and go down in size if you're not weight training. That will happen. But if you've been training for, say, a few months, taking a week off every now and then will actually help. Your muscles do start to, and tendons, ligaments will start to wear down eventually. So taking a week off every now and then can actually result in making better gains.
There was a recent medical report about protein shakes that how some could be dangerous. Like, what is your opinion on protein shakes? Do they help muscle development, or is it like a fad?
No, protein shakes have been around for a long time now. There's been a lot of studies done on them. You need to be careful of which study and how you interpret them. For the most part, most studies have shown that protein shakes don't cause any damage to us. There's a lot of people that say having a ridiculously high protein intake can have some negative effect on the kidneys because of the amount of work required to process them. But I don't believe that they're dangerous, and most of the medical professionals that work within the industry don't believe that they are either. I think they're a good way of increasing your total overall protein intake, which is necessary for repairing your muscles and in turn muscle growth.
What's the best type of foods do you recommend for muscle development?
For total protein intake, which is the most important when it comes to muscle growth, that plus a sort of at least a maintenance or a caloric surplus, just foods that are high in protein, chicken, beef, lamb. I prefer to stick to meat over other sort of protein sources purely because our body can just use it better than what it can. Nuts and stuff like that just doesn't have the same uptake as what meat does.
When talking about reps, when you do the exercise, is it better to do fast or slowly?
It depends on your goal, but if your goal is muscular development, then the probably the most important factor is mechanical tension. So the amount of time that your muscles are under tension is what's going to result in muscle growth. So if you do 10 reps in 5 seconds, or you do 10 reps across 20 seconds, the 20-second rep range, 20-second will result in a much better outcome. Yeah, so you want to increase the amount of time that your muscles are under tension because that's what's going to promote the growth. Yeah.
Yes. So what foods should people avoid if they want to develop muscle growth?
In terms of avoiding, there's no necessity to have an extremely high fat diet. Fats can generally, apart from your healthy fats, can play some role in proper brain function, and you do need fats to a certain extent, but people do go overboard and particularly in a bulking phase that they call it, will think that they can eat anything and everything, and it results, a really high fat diet is hard to control your calories and can end up just sort of putting on a lot more fat than what is really necessary. So trying to stick to, they call them clean foods, but I don't really use that term because what's clean and what's not, there's no real distinct barrier between the two of them. But just trying to be healthy, stick to your leaner cuts of meats where you can, and getting, of course, enough vegetables in to sort of support you as well.
Does skipping leg day actually help with if you want to concentrate on upper arm, or does it help the whole body?
People skip leg day. I think in most cases it's majority guys that are the ones that tend to skip leg day a bit, and I think it's because they're more focused on creating a bigger upper body, what they often refer to as beach muscles. So what you see when you look in the mirror, the arms, the chest, abdominals, that sort of stuff. Skipping leg day doesn't help in any way apart from increasing the amount of work that they're going to do on their upper body. So you skip a leg day and you do another arm day, or you do another chest day, and it's going.
How many times should people exercise a week if they want to see results?
Yeah, that all depends on the level of the lifter. So for someone that's a beginner, 3 times a week isn't usually enough. We need a sort of total number of sets per body part is what I normally work off. So when you're a beginner, trying to sort of get about 8 sets per muscle group per week. So you do, say, maybe on a Monday you might do 8 sets of chest, 8 sets of triceps, 8 sets of shoulders. You come in on, a Wednesday, you'll do 8 sets of back, 8 sets of perhaps rear delts and 8 sets of biceps, and then on a Friday you might come in and do your 8 sets of quads, hamstrings and calves. Yeah.
Alex, thank you for your time. So I was curious about people who go to the gym, what type of exercises they do, and people who don't, why they don't go to the gym. Is it because of time or lack of energy? So I went around Swinburne University to ask this very question.
So recently I haven't really been going to the gym much, but before I used to go quite often, like 3 or more times a week. And at that time I used to do the 5x5 exercise regimen, and that consists of just so there was deadlifts, there were a lot of squats. I'd have to do squats quite often. I'd have to do some lat pull downs, and I did a lot of rowing.
I work on my arms a lot because my job kind of requires me to use my arms a lot. Kind of holding heavy things for a long period of time can get pretty strainful. Bench presses, push-ups, sit-ups, basic things. Don't need a lot of equipment for it, so what's easy at home?
I'm too busy with university.
Yeah, there were a few others. I can't really recall the names at the moment. But,
It is because you haven't been recently, it's just because of time?
Yeah, just because of time and studies and work and other commitments. So, but I think I really do try to go out as often as possible. So I think people should consider, if they haven't already been going to the gym, I reckon they should consider doing it. It's good for your health and good for your lifestyle, so I think it's good.
So we all know if you lift weights, eventually your muscles get bigger. But do you know why? I spoke to Dr. Robin Murphy about this. We chatted about the science behind muscle development and see if some myths were true or not. How do the muscles develop and grow?
Without going into the detail of how the muscles grow, I think what you're perhaps more interested in is how do muscles get bigger in someone like yourself. So let's say an adult who wants to get stronger, they need their muscles to grow to be able to do that. And that is a process called hypertrophy, which means that your muscles are growing. And in many parts of our bodies, we get more cells, so they're very tiny, tiny microscopic parts of the body. You get more cells to make something bigger. But in muscles, you don't get more cells. You actually make the ones that you've got get bigger, get fatter. And the fatter they are, the stronger they are. So if you think about someone who is perhaps interested in getting stronger and they decide to go to a gym, and after 2 months or 3 months in the gym, they will notably have stronger arms and stronger legs if they're the muscles they've been working on. So of the muscle fibres they've got, they've just been getting bigger.
Speaking of the gym, when someone lifts weights, how does that build the muscles?
Have you ever heard of the term no pain, no gain?
Yes.
Yes. That's a fairly common term, and it's one that's used in the gym, and it's absolutely true, because if you go to the gym, the idea is that you, the next day, will feel a little bit sore. Not hopefully too sore, but a little bit sore. In actual fact, 2 days after you go and do a workout will be the peak of your soreness. And then you will start to recover from that. And that's very natural, and you want that to happen because it's that little bit of pain that you get that's happening because you get what we call micro tears in the edges of the muscle cells. And the micro tears allow something from the outside of the muscle to get in, and that is calcium. There'll be a number of things, but calcium can get in, and it can activate a few processes inside the muscle cell to grow more protein inside the cell. And inside the cell we have 2 proteins, they're called actin and myosin, and they lock together to make our muscles contract when you want the muscles to do something. And if you have more of those proteins, actin and myosin, in a given space, then you'll be stronger. So little micro tears that happen let calcium in, but then the body responds to those by causing a bit of inflammation. And a bit of inflammation becomes present in the muscle cell, and that's normal, and that causes a little bit of soreness. So the bit of pain you get is good pain, and that's the pain that tells you that you will be getting a little bit stronger.
So does genetics play a role in muscle development?
It does. It does. The precise mechanism of how the genetics play a role, I don't know myself, but certainly we know that the factors that will influence how strong a person can be will be factors such as gender. Gender has a big part because males have testosterone, and that will help muscles grow. Age. Your muscles won't get as strong if you are prepubescent, for instance, or if you're older. They don't respond in the same way, even though the processes are similar. And genetics. So people from certain parts of the world or certain genetic backgrounds will be have more musculature than others. And I think if you probably think of Afro-Americans, they've often got very defined musculature and they're very good athletes, and people from the subcontinent don't seem to have the same sort of musculature. So from India or Sri Lanka, you see that people are not have as much musculature. So in that sense, there must be a genetic part that's saying the muscle isn't going to develop to the same extent. And there are particular proteins that will dictate that type of thing. But there is, I don't know what the genetic link is, but there is clearly something there. And anecdotally, I'll have some people say to me, I go to the gym and I don't get bigger. Why don't I get bigger?
I have that problem. Like, I started going to the gym this year, and I'm struggling a bit to try and gain my muscles. So
that's interesting. So when you go to the gym, do you feel sore after going to the gym?
Yeah, most days. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and it'll only feel sore if you push yourself to that point. And so if you are pushing yourself and you get some of that pain, then yes, your muscle's doing what it needs to do. But clearly the response is smaller in you than in someone else. And so whether that's because of genetic predisposition, and I think it probably is, but what the factor is, I don't know what that is, but there is a genetic influence.
Does weather have an impact in muscle development? Because you see comparison pictures in Nordic countries where you have these big bulky men, and say compared to people in hotter environments where they're more skinny. Is that any true?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that, but as soon as you say that, it makes me think that one of the byproducts of using our muscles is heat. So like a car engine, our muscles are around about 35 to 40% efficient, which means that the energy that you give it turns into mechanical work so that you can lift something or you can do a squat. The rest of it is turned into heat. So one of the reasons why we get hot when we run around is because the muscles are being used and the byproduct is heat. There's a process in your muscles by which you can bypass, and there's actually another part of your body that can do this, but there's a process by which you can bypass the mechanical work and just use the muscles to produce heat. And there's a protein that was discovered 25 years ago, and we think that protein called actinin 3 might be part of this mechanism by which you can get the muscle to produce heat over mechanical work. And there's another couple of proteins that can switch one of our other proteins on, without being too particular, to just cycle through and use up ATP to give heat. And what we do know about this actinin 3 is that it is more prevalent in the genetic makeup of people from Nordic regions versus equatorial regions is such that you asked if there's a difference, but the difference could be that you need to be able to stay warmer in the colder regions. Of course, in modern day, we have thermoregulation all around us, but we're talking about an evolutionary process. So I think that evolutionary speaking, if you've got a lot of muscle, you produce a lot of heat. So if you've got less muscle, you produce less heat. So if you don't have too much muscle and you live around the equator, then that's probably a good thing based on... Yeah, so I like that idea that you just asked me, but what makes me think about is the heat.
Dr. Murphy, thank you so much for your time. So comes to the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining me. We learned a lot today. I just want to give a quick message to people who are thinking about joining the gym or not. I understand it could be very nerve-wracking for some people. However, once you get in a good rhythm, and even doing just small reps or just jogging on the treadmill for 20 minutes can be enough to improve your fitness and well-being. So I recommend just giving it a go. Give it a good 3 months, and if it's not for you, that's fine. Anyway, I hope this podcast gave you a better idea of what to do if you want to develop your muscle, and I hope you learned something out of this. You've been listening to Fitness for Noobs.